Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Green Scene. My name is Shona McGill, and I'm an Education Programs Officer at Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center. With me this morning is lead aquarist Adam Jackson. We're excited to bring you another episode of The Green Scene today, and we hope that you'll tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. here on Bobo 89.1 FM as we talk all about the conservation, wildlife, and more. In each episode, we'll be exploring topics relating to conservation here in the Cayman Islands, including protecting our natural environment and preserving our culture and heritage, as well as talking all about sea turtles and other native species. On today's show, we'll be talking all about mangroves. We'll begin by talking about the importance of mangroves and their significance, highlighting their unique characteristics and the role they play in protecting coastal communities. We'll then delve into the specific types of mangroves found here in the Cayman Islands and their distinctive features. Later in the show, we'll be joined by Cassandra McDowell, Education Manager at the Mangrove Education Project, who'll be telling us more about their education and community engagement initiatives. So Adam, as our resident mangrove expert at CTC, tell us why mangroves are so important.
Let's start with water mangroves. Right, mangroves are a type of coastal vegetation that grow in tropical and subtropical regions. They are uniquely adapted to live in the intertidal zone, the area where the land basically meets the sea. Let's talk a little bit about their significance now. Mangroves play a pretty crucial role in protecting our coastal communities from storms, floods, and erosion. Also from waves, and they also help build the land as well. Their dense root systems trap sediment and do slow down waves, reducing the impact of storms and preventing our coasts from erosion. They have some pretty unique characteristics to look for. So mangroves have several unique adaptations that allow them to survive in the harsh coastal environment. They have specialized roots that can absorb oxygen from the air and filter out salt from the water. Their leaves are thick and waxy, helping them to reduce the water loss, in this hot and dry climate, all right? A little bit about their biodiversity. The mangroves are home to a diverse array of plant and animal species. They provide habitat for juvenile fish, crabs, and other marine animals, which in turn support large fish populations and provide food for local communities, right? Now, what are the significance or global significance about mangroves is that mangroves are not only important to the Cayman Islands, but they're also important to the world at large. They are one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth, sequestering large amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and helping to mitigate climate change. Now, one of the cultural significance of mangroves here is that they were used a long time ago by turtlers. Outcrops, which almost look like a circular pattern in the mangrove wetlands, they would sometimes be, fitted to house the turtles that the mariners would catch and, of course, bring back to the Cayman Islands, and they would use them to hold them there for trade. So that was a pretty cool cultural significance, I would say.
They called them corrals.
Yes, that's what they were, or crawls, all crawls, as the local people or the turtling generation would say. A really cool thing about mangroves too here in Cayman is that they're actually one of the only places in the Caribbean that they don't really stratify, meaning they're not in specific or their unique tidal zones. They're all kind of mixed together. So there's a lot of places where you can find like red, black, and white mangroves all mixed into the same area. So I found that pretty unique. And then, of course, we talk about mangroves, but we can't help to talk about the threats, So their threats, despite their importance, mangroves are under threat from human activities such as deforestation, coastal development, and pollution. So protecting and conserving our mangrove ecosystem is pretty critical to ensure that their survival and the survival of the species that depend on them. Want to make sure we protect them.
Exactly. And you briefly mentioned a few species of mangroves that we have here in the Cayman Islands. What exact species can be found here?
So the species that can be found here, first of all, are the red mangroves. They'll be found more or less in the deeper water, deeper coastal water, followed by the black and the white mangroves. So the black mangroves will more likely be in the zones behind the red mangroves, and then the white mangroves, of course, will be behind those. And around little small brackish marshes or freshwater ponds, you might be able to actually find buttonwood mangroves. So there are about 3 to 4 species here.
And what are some of the ways you can tell the difference between the species of mangroves?
Well, they have some pretty unique characteristics for them each. Red mangroves in particular, these guys have like very kind of like thick green shiny leaves. They have the stilt roots, which are these long roots that you can see above the water column and below and around the coastline as well. They also have like a reddish looking bark, and usually the water around them is a little bit stained by the red tannins that they release. The black mangroves, more of like a kind of like a darkish tree. You'll see that you'll see like some little segmented parts of the bark, and then you'll see like a little black streak in between them. And it's usually their leaves are kind of not as bright. And they also have like these little small, well, we call them snorkels, but they're actually chromatophores that come out of the ground. And those are connected by a long root on the bottom. That's how they spread. So you'll see a lot of those coming out of the surrounding ground of the main tree. So that's kind of how you can tell. The white is, of course, a lot lighter. With a kind of a lightish looking colored bark, but they do have those kind of like shiny leaves again.
So those were some interesting facts about those species of mangroves.
Yeah.
Now, I was here around Hurricane Ivan, and I'm sure most of the listeners, if you were around during Hurricane Ivan, you know the significance of mangroves to the Cayman Islands, but also coastal areas. But what would you say is the significance of mangroves here in the Cayman Islands?
Okay, so mangroves play a pretty crucial role in protecting our coastal communities from storms, floods, and erosion. Their dense root systems, they trap sediment, and by that, they build the land up and also expand our coastlines. For red mangroves especially, these guys have a very vast root system, and if you have a lot of sediment trapped in there, it will slow things down, slow like wave action down. It'll also lessen the rise of storm surge, and also slow down the erosion of their coastline. So there's a lot, and of course, a lot of them have, or all of the mangroves basically have roots that absorb the oxygen and stuff from the air and stuff like that. So, there's a lot that we could list out, and things like their leaves are thick and waxy, so it kind of helps reduce the water loss in like a hot, dry climate.
So they help keep us safe from storms, which is very important now, especially because we're seeing an increase in hurricanes and storms like that. So
Definitely.
The necessity for our mangroves to help protect our coastlines is very important.
Very important. Very important.
They don't just protect the land, they also help the biodiversity out there as well.
Yes, they do. Mangroves are a very diverse ecosystem, really. Not only do they provide homes for, different types of plants and animal species above the waterline, but they also provide a very large and significant part of the aquatic ecosystem. They provide habitats for juvenile fish, crabs, and other marine animals. And then they also support larger populations of fish as well, which in turn can provide, local communities and stuff with food sources.
And I know we're talking about the mangroves here in Cayman, but it's not just here that they play that important role. They're also important around the world and globally, too.
Yes, of course. And, all around the world, mangroves are where they grow in tropical and their subtropical regions are very important. They're not only important to us here, but also, like we said, around the world. And then one of the most productive, they're actually one of the most productive ecosystems on Earth. They're basically one of the plants that absorb some of the most carbon dioxide from the air and from our atmosphere, and it all, so in, those plants that do that, they're helping to pretty much prevent or mitigate climate change. Very important around the world, if you ask me.
Definitely are. And just like most important things, they are under threat. So what threats face mangroves out there in the environment?
Just like most things, the biggest threat to mangroves right now are human activities. Things like deforestation or coastal development, and also pollution, because, like mangroves, they absorb air through their roots, but they also absorb a lot of nutrients through the water as well, just like any other plant. Any type of pollution or anything will definitely be absorbed across their roots, and of course would make the plant suffer, and it would not be a good state for our ecosystem. So obviously keeping like coastal development on a low, or of course trying to find ways to prevent pollution or polluting the areas. I always like to go to developers, or would like to mention to developers, if there's any chance that you could save even a good portion of the mangrove outcrops that you have, that you're on a piece of land that may be developed, it'll be the best thing ever, just to save that area.
That would definitely help.
Yeah.
So guys, as you may have heard, Adam is very knowledgeable on the mangroves here in the Cayman Islands, but we're actually going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll be joined by Cassandra McDowell, the education manager at the Mangrove Education Project. So see you guys in a few moments, and we'll be back in a bit.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Did you know that turtles play an important role in ocean ecosystems? Turtles maintain healthy seagrass beds and coral reefs, providing key habitat for other marine life and helping to balance marine food webs and nutrient cycling. Learn more about our turtle friends at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, my name is Coco. I'm a Cayman parrot at the Cayman Turtle Center. I was rescued and love my home here. Did you know our human friends at the center breed and raise Cayman parrots, the national bird of the Cayman Islands, then release them to live in the wild? Come visit me and my bird friends at Cayman Turtle Center.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Green Scene on Bobo 89.1 FM. Right now, I'm joined by Cassandra McDowell from the Mangrove Education Project. Cassandra, can you just start off by telling us about the history of the Mangrove Education Project here in the Cayman Islands?
Yeah, of course. So the Mangrove Education Project started back in 2001 by our director, Martin Keeley. It was started to encourage environmental education in local public schools. And since it has been founded, it has grown and expanded into multiple different projects. We've actually developed 2 curriculums that are now being implemented into all Year 5 classes throughout the Cayman Islands.
That's great. And what would you say are some of the key educational programs and initiatives at the Mangrove Education Project, what you offer to schools?
So we offer a wide range of field trips and classroom sessions. Just recently this year, we have expanded our Marvelous Mangroves curriculum to include coral reefs and seagrasses. So we have expanded to be the Coastal Lagoon Project. And we offer field trips to each ecosystem, so we can take your class or your group of employees to mangrove habitats like the central mangrove wetlands. We do walking tours. We also can charter boats to take everybody out into the North Sound or onto the coral reefs to snorkel the reefs and explore the seagrass meadows.
Those sound like some really great programs that you guys offer. And how would you say you guys work with the local communities here to promote the conservation and preservation of mangrove communities here?
So our largest public outreach aspect of the Mangrove Education Project is what most people actually know us as, is the Mangrove Rangers. So this project was started back in 2020 when Martin realized that there was a need for some sort of local action with the preservation of mangroves. So he started this project to encourage young Caymanians and people of all ages to join a group that really understands the ecology of mangroves, their benefits, their functions, the threats they're facing, and to sort of give the mangroves a voice to be protected and to encourage the protection of all the 3 different species that we have here of mangroves. And that project has really taken off over the past few years. Obviously, we slowed down a bit during the COVID pandemic. So it's very exciting to see the program really ramping up again since reopening and sort of regulations being removed and restrictions being removed. So we're very excited about the future of this program and getting a lot more people involved. And we have definitely seen a lot more people interested in what we're doing and getting involved over the past few months.
We love to see that. We love to see more people becoming involved with conservation and improving their education on these topics as well. Now, I know our lead aquarist, Adam, talked about some of the threats facing our mangrove systems here in the Cayman Islands, but what would you say are some of the key threats facing mangrove communities here?
Like Adam said, a lot of the threats that we see here locally are human impacts. So coastal development and just development in general here is a really big one, especially on Grand Cayman, because the island is majority originally wetland. So actually about 80% of the Western Peninsula that was originally mangroves have been removed since the 1970s. So we've seen a lot of mangrove forests be destroyed due to development. Obviously, Cayman in the 70s and 80s did need that development. But at the rate that we're seeing it expand right now, it is a little concerning on that development side that just we're not prioritizing natural spaces, and a lot of developments just clear the entire section of land and then say, oh, well, we can replant more species, native species, which is great in theory, but unfortunately mangrove restoration is not very successful when done large scale. Obviously, a lot of projects do have a great success rate, but on the average, we only see about 5% success rate globally on mangrove restoration projects. So we do encourage developers, like Adam was saying, to prioritize the nature on your development site. And if you don't have to clear the whole site, maybe just clear the portions that you require to develop on. So coastal development is a huge one here in the Cayman Islands, and just removing those wetland areas and filling them. But also we see a lot of pollution, not just locally, but pollution that washes up on our shorelines. Obviously, mangroves are coastal plants, so they line the edges of our coastlines. So they do catch a lot of the plastic pollution that we see washing up on our shores, which can then not only affect the mangrove and the growth of the tree, but can also cause entanglement or ingestion by the species that live in that ecosystem.
And is the Mangrove Education Project doing anything to address these challenges?
Yeah, so our main way that we work with the community to address the different challenges and threats that mangroves face, we believe, is education, first and foremost. That's why we encourage this curriculum to be implemented in all Year 5 classes. And thankfully, the Marvelous Mangroves program has been in public schools, but we also have a lot of private schools that we work with. And we believe that educating people from a young age, so we don't just work with Year 5 students, we work with anybody who wants us to work with them. The youngest class we've had actually was 2 and 3-year-olds, and we go all the way up to university students and adults. And we believe that educating people from whatever age, earlier the better, allows people to really understand the benefits that mangroves have, why we need to protect them, and then in turn they can relate why we need them and why we should protect them to their day-to-day life, whether that's reducing your carbon footprint by turning off lights, riding a bike, walking, taking public transport, stuff like that, or in direct impacts like if you're a homeowner, following the trimming guidelines put forward by the Department of Environment, because mangroves are a protected species here in the Cayman Islands. So it's very important to understand the law as a citizen and make sure you're following all of those regulations to help encourage mangrove growth and prevent mass destruction.
Well, thank you for all of the work you guys are doing at the Mangrove Education Project. There's a quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's something like, the more you learn, the more you understand, and the more you understand, the more you care. So conservation of mangroves especially, but all living things and creatures is really important because we do have to protect and take care of those creatures. But even though you guys are doing some great work for the mangroves out there, how would the regular person get involved with the conservation of mangroves?
So the biggest thing, like I said, is just being aware, knowing that these are important ecosystems. A lot of people, before you learn about mangroves, think that they're just smelly swamps full of mosquitoes.
And sargassum.
Yes, and sargassum, exactly. So it's pretty interesting. I know I definitely was one of those people that was like, it's in the middle of the bush, it's full of mosquitoes, it's hot, it's swampy, but now I really enjoy my walks through the mangrove forests and habitats here. Like, it is really cool. And so being aware and understanding the vitality of the ecosystem and the importance of them and what they do for us is a great way to take a first step into being involved in protecting these ecosystems. Also, volunteering at events that support mangroves. So the Cayman Turtle Center has their mangrove restoration sector. We also have our Mangrove Rangers program that is open to anybody. We have a Junior Rangers program that's open to kids ages 8 to 14 to get involved and learn about mangroves. And we also do beach cleans with Plastic Free Cayman. They also work to clean up our mangrove ecosystems, which is great. So there's lots of different ways in the community that you can either volunteer once or get involved on a more long-term basis with the protection of mangroves.
Incredible. And can you share any success stories you might have or notable instances or achievements that the Mangrove Education Project has had?
Yeah, definitely. So the Mangrove Education Project, like I said, was started in 2001 here in the Cayman Islands, but we actually work with another international nonprofit called the Mangrove Action Project. And between the two nonprofits, we have been able to implement our previous curriculum, Marvelous Mangroves, through 16 countries worldwide, and we've educated over 500,000 students over the past 50 years. A lot of that work is thanks to our director, Martin Keeley, who has traveled all over the world, but is based here in Cayman. So that is something that we're really excited about and proud of. And also we're excited because we have our new Coastal Lagoon Guide that we plan to go back to these countries and expand it into the overseas territories to work with local nonprofits there that focus on environmental education, environmental science, and get that into their local school systems, wherever that might be. So on the list right now, we have the British Virgin Islands, Turks and Caicos Islands, and Bahamas, just to name a few that we have plans to visit over the next few years to implement our new and refreshed curriculum that includes all those coastal ecosystems.
So all of us in conservation, we're very much focused on the present, but we also have to be prepared going into the future of what we're going to do as well. So looking into the future, what are some of the key goals and objectives that the Mangrove Education Project has for either promoting awareness for the conservation of mangrove ecosystems or just preserving mangrove ecosystems here in the Cayman Islands?
So some of the things that we're very excited about, obviously the curriculum being, or our new curriculum being in the national curriculum. That's great. Obviously all Year 5 students that go through the public school system are going to have some sort of environmental education aspect to it, which is great. But we're very excited. Obviously, the youth is our future. So having our Junior Ranger program finally established, we're finishing up our pilot program at the end of this school year and starting our full 1-year program in September. So we're very excited about that and seeing how that expands into possibly other countries or a much larger group. And we meet once a month. So the students, we all meet on a Saturday morning and we focus on topics that are directly related to their local ecosystems. So for example, We've gone over insects, birds found in the wetlands. We've also done seagrass and coral reef explorations and kayaks and snorkels, and not necessarily mangrove related, but also local species. The next junior ranger meeting is going to be on reptiles, so we're going to visit the blue iguana conservation program.
That's the blue iguana recovery program.
So we like to give them just an overview on not just mangroves and coral reefs and seagrasses, but all natural ecosystems and native species here in the Cayman Islands. So we're very excited to see what that program flourishes in the future. Yeah.
Well, I wish you all the best success. Now, if one of our listeners to this program wanted to get involved with the Mangrove Education Project, what would they have to do if they wanted to take part in one of your initiatives?
So we have a website. It is mangroverangers.ky. On that site, we have our volunteer opportunities, the lessons that we offer, also information on the Junior Ranger program and the Mangrove Ranger program. We also have the National Conservation Law listed on there. So if anybody is interested to see those laws surrounding mangroves and wetlands, definitely go check us out on there and have a quick read through just so you're aware and up to date on what the current laws and regulations are. We also have a new website that we just launched called the Coastal Lagoon website, coastallagoon.org, which is where we have all of our teaching materials, resources, how-to videos, activities. All of our educational resources are on there. All you have to do is log in and sign up. It's all free of charge, and we just want to make it as accessible and easy for everyone to access information on mangroves, seagrasses, coral reefs, things that relate to our natural ecosystems, not just in the Cayman Islands, but also worldwide. So we have those two websites. We also have an email, a general email, info@mangroverangers.ky. Feel free to always send us an email, and we can try our best to direct you to the correct outlets for that.
Well, you've heard it from Cassie, guys. If you want to take part in these initiatives, please reach out. But Cassie, do you have any final words before we head to a break?
No, obviously we're on Instagram and Facebook as well at the Mangrove Rangers KY, and our YouTube channel is Mangrove Rangers Cayman Islands. So lots of resources on there.
Always. So thank you so much for joining us, Cassie. She will be back with us a little later on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. But right now we're going to head to a break, and afterwards we'll be joined by Adam, our lead aquarist at Cayman Turtle Center, to talk to us about our mangrove programs there. We'll be right back, guys. See you soon.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Did you know that turtles play an important role in ocean ecosystems? Turtles maintain healthy seagrass beds and coral reefs, providing key habitat for other marine life and helping to balance marine food webs and nutrient cycling. Learn more about our turtle friends at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, my name is Coco. I'm a Cayman parrot at the Cayman Turtle Center. I was rescued and love my home here. Did you know our human friends at the center breed and raise Cayman parrots, the national bird of the Cayman Islands, then release them to live in the wild? Come visit me and my bird friends at Cayman Turtle Center.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Green Scene. My name is Shona McGill, and I'm one of the Education Programs Officers at Cayman Turtle Center. And right now I'm joined with Adam Jackson, who is our lead aquarist at Cayman Turtle Center. And he's here to talk to us a little bit about the mangrove programs that we have at Cayman Turtle Center, which we touched upon in the last segment. So Adam, can you just start us off by talking about the start of the mangrove programs at Cayman Turtle Center?
Yes, sure thing, Jonah. So it started along couple years ago, 2012 to be honest. I was not the lead aquarist at the time. I was just an aquarist at that point in time. So we have an exhibit called the Shoreline Nursery where we would keep a lot of smaller fish in. But we noticed that there was something missing about Shoreline Nursery. It was not actually a shoreline. Well, obviously it has to replicate what the title says it is. So it has to replicate a shoreline nursery, okay? And the thing is, had a little skiff at that time, and I took it out one day in the southern side of the head of Barkers just to kind of get a good idea of what an actual shoreline nursery looked like.
Yeah.
And of course, it was mangroves, because all along the southern edge of Barkers, it's just this one of the most pristine mangrove habitats and ecosystems you want to see. There's a lot of abundance of small reef fish and beds and beds of seagrass and turtle grass, starfish, everything you can think of. So basically, in that, I told my boss at the time that, I think I know what we are missing from our shoreline nursery. So I started off, I'm pretty sure that mangroves were not under the new conservation law at that time. And there were a few seedlings that were under my dock, because I do live on a canal, and right next to my dock, there's some mangroves that are growing there. There were some few mangrove seedlings that had started to put out roots and all that. So I took them up in a little bucket, took them back to the Cayman Turtle Center, put them in a small pot, and there were 6 of them. And we put those in our shoreline nursery. So just like any other terrestrial plant, once the mangrove seedlings have good substrate, good environmental conditions, and you maintain it, they'll grow. They'll start growing. And they started to grow, they put out a few leaves, and then we just kind of got to a point where we left it alone because we didn't really know how far it would get. And we just left it, and over the course of I would say the last 12 years, those mangrove seedlings have grown significantly into large mature mangrove trees. And now I can surely tell you that our shoreline nursery does look like a shoreline nursery, okay? It does speak for itself. So basically, when these plants were big and matured, there was a lifeguard that, they look over our swimming lagoon. He came to me one day and asked me, Mr. Adam, what are these things that I find floating in the lagoon? And I noticed what they were right away. They were mangrove seeds. So I stopped for a minute and had a look at our mangrove trees, and of course they were at a mature point where they were actually producing their own seedlings. So it wasn't until then that I realized, wow, we actually have something pretty cool here, And of course, we at that point in time, we were all focused on all of our other initiatives that we had going. And I just started to put 1 or 2 seedlings in a pot and then put it aside like how I'd done before, and they started to grow well as well. So I think it wasn't until about COVID when we didn't have much visitors coming in because of the pandemic, and we were working on our shifts and everything, where I decided to start a little project there. Of course, I had a lot of inspiration from my fellow colleagues and other animal programs managers who were there also inspired it to try to start some sort of a program at least. And just like you would for terrestrial plants, I gathered up a lot of those small plant potters. I do have a few other things that we have, objects that we've actually recycled and grown mangroves in. So we're not, contributing to any waste or anything. And started to plant them out and noticed that they were going really, really, really well. And we planted over about 100 of these mangrove propagules in our shoreline nursery. So what do we do next? Well, we, just like Cayman Turtle Center's main goal is to revitalize the environment with our release turtles, then I said, well, we could possibly do this with mangroves as well. Where there's mangrove depletion on one side, there could be mangrove restoration on the other side. So we took that in hand and we kind of went through a few different scenarios, different options as we played around with it in our shoreline nursery. We actually found one that worked really well. So we started to use that. And of course, there developed our mangrove conservation program. So yeah, that's pretty much everything in one right there. And now, it's these things that things that you have to ask or that are asked is why do you want to restore mangrove ecosystems? And as we have talked about in our previous segment here, is that mangroves are like we said important to our coastal ecosystems. They don't just provide shelter and stuff for fish, but they're also beneficial to other ecosystems as well, such as the tidal marshes, seagrass meadows, mud flats. All of those areas, mangroves play a very vital role in. So, wanting to restore them and wanting to conserve them is a very important thing for us as well. So, in growing these in our own pots, we're trying to see if we could actually expand and put these out on our coastlines to see how well they will grow. And we've done that in an area where we have obviously gained permission from the landowner, and they're actually growing really well. They do take a little bit of maintenance. You have to go there every week, every 2 weeks, check the substrate, check everything around the plants, but they are actually growing really, really well. So we're proud of the propagules that we have out so far, and we're glad that they're coming along good.
Now, I may be a bit biased, and maybe you are too, but I've definitely seen the growth in our shoreline nursery in the almost 7 years I've worked at Cayman Turtle Center, from seeing the seedlings produced. But one of my favorite things is through the mangrove restoration, you have mangrove seedlings and then also mangroves of different sizes and ages in our shoreline nursery too, which is really interesting to see.
We have a lot of different age groups in there actually. And what we found out recently is that a mature mangrove tree takes about, I would say, about 1.5 to 2 years to start producing seedlings. Now, whether those seedlings are viable seedlings, they have produced them. One of our vet and myself, of course, during COVID lockdown, it was just an example of this, it was Earth Month. So we planted a tree in our little mangrove pot in our shoreline nursery on April the 20th for Earth Month as a little video presentation to get out there while under COVID lockdown. And the last month, April, I checked the plant again and it already produced seed. So that's about 3 years since. But there are some other little trees that we have around our lagoon that we've only planted out there last year or the year before that have already sprung seeds as well. So we're noticing that these guys are reaching maturity a lot quicker than we actually thought. So yeah, it's gonna be a cool exploring and kind of a good time trying to see if we can basically come up with a good way to preserve all of these mangroves that we have and of course contribute to the conservation, because of course our trees are becoming mature, they're producing more and more seedlings, so we would love to kind of try to get the seedlings out into the natural ecosystem and hopefully revitalize and restore some areas that need.
Incredible. And could you just walk all of us through the process of how you get it from the mangrove seedling to the replanting?
Okay, so basically, once the seedling has dropped off of the mature plant, we'll usually gather those seedlings up and we'll put them in a suspended floating device that helps germinate roots for the plant. Now, once those roots get a certain length, about 3 to 4 inches, so we know that it will hold well in the soil, we will take regular substrate, regular soil that you'll find around your plant beds or your gardens or even on the ground. Like, we take that substrate, we will put it in pots and make it sit in the water for about a week to make it, grow all of the anaerobic bacteria that the soil needs and that the plant needs actually. And once we've figured that anaerobic bacteria has developed, we would go ahead and then plant those seedlings into those pots. And once they've been planted there and they've secured themselves, in about a week's time, you'll see about the first or second green leaf kind of starting to shoot up from the spire, which is the top of the seed. And from there, they'll grow and grow until they're about about 2 to 3 feet high. At that stage, they've already kind of put out their top root, which is a long, almost like an anchor root, a long, thick root that actually goes deep in the soil. And from there, it's probably the best time to transition them in onto our coastline, where that top root will continue to grow and continue to go further down in the substrate to anchor those smaller plants so that they can be more resilient to weathering.
And if I'm correct, you've had corporations and organizations reach out to be a part of the mangrove replanting, right?
Yes. So we have a few organizations that are actually waiting on my call right now to help them to come out and help them get involved in this mangrove planting. In fact, we did a small one, kind of a low-key one, for the Duke of Edinburgh back in October, November, where we had a group of 15 participants plant out about 3 to 4 pots of seedlings out in Barker's there. So they were out there. They had a really good time. They learned about the mangroves and the wetlands. They learned a lot basically from their volunteering work as they came out to help us.
And if there are any individuals listening who might want to volunteer with our mangrove programs, or any corporations that might want to be a part of the mangrove project at Cayman Turtle Center, how would they reach out to you to take part in these initiatives?
Well, usually, of course, sending an email, visiting our website, getting our email address, from Cayman Turtle Center address and email address, and emailing to say you'd want to be a part of it, perfectly fine. The email is usually rerouted to our education team or to myself, and I'll be able to coordinate and assist with all that.
Well, thank you so much for all that information, Adam. I am afraid, guys, that we're going to have to take yet another break, but we'll be right back in a few moments with both Adam and Cassie for our final segment. So see you guys in a few.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Did you know that turtles play an important role in ocean ecosystems? Turtles maintain healthy seagrass beds and coral reefs, providing key habitat for other marine life and helping to balance marine food webs and nutrient cycling. Learn more about our turtle friends at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, my name is Coco. I'm a Cayman parrot at the Cayman Turtle Center. I was rescued and love my home here. Did you know our human friends at the center breed and raise Cayman parrots, the national bird of the Cayman Islands, then release them to live in the wild? Come visit me and my bird friends at Cayman Turtle Center.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to the Green Scene on Bobo 89.1 FM. And with me right now, I have our lead aquarist at Cayman Turtle Center, Mr. Adam Jackson. And I'm also joined by Cassandra McDowell, the education manager at the Mangrove Education Project. So welcome back, you guys, to the Green Scene.
Hey.
Thanks.
And if anyone wanted to get out and get involved personally in just interacting with nature and mangroves, what are some things they could do to get out there?
So obviously there are many different nonprofits here in the Cayman Islands that work with mangroves or around mangroves. So a big one is volunteering with the Mangrove Rangers. We host a few different events throughout the year. A big one is our Mangrove Art Festival, which happens the last weekend of July. So attending that, being involved in our art submissions. Also, we do public tours of the central mangroves, kayak tours, boat tours, and quite a bit of public advocacy through social media. So sharing and educating and getting aware on the ecosystems around us is a good way.
Well, we're not as elaborate as Cassie and her Mangrove Rangers with all of those nice cool activities to be done. But of course, from a Cayman Turtle Center perspective, if anyone is ever, coming by the Cayman Turtle Center, or they're in the park, of course, you can have a stroll by our shoreline nursery. You'll be able to see our nice, good, mature mangrove trees with all of our little fish and nice, neat, cool little fish that we have swimming around in our exhibit. very interactive, and of course, there is always a place where people can ask questions and find one of our crew members and interact with them and see how they can get involved.
And Cassie, can we once again remind the listeners of the importance of mangroves, not only here, but also worldwide?
Of course. So mangroves provide many benefits to not just the ecosystem, but also to us humans. The big one for us here in the Cayman Islands, especially on Grand Cayman, because we're such a low-lying island, obviously mangroves provide us with a buffer zone for storm surge and big waves. So during hurricane season and also rainy season, mangroves do provide a lot of flood mitigation. So when we see those big storm systems moving through, mangroves are first line of defense on the shoreline. So obviously coral reefs and seagrass meadows also provide that wave impact buffer, but the mangroves, since they're such flexible trees, they're able to absorb up to 80% of the wave's energy. So having a coastline full of mangroves definitely helps reduce the impacts of wave action further inshore. So it really, really does do a lot to prevent mass destruction and mass flooding events for us. Also, when we're talking about aquatic species, they're great nursery grounds for juvenile fish and all sorts of key species that especially us here in Cayman really appreciate, like our spiny lobsters and queen conch. Without our mangrove habitats, we're going to see a lot less of those kinds of species. And when we're talking about the sport fishing industry and just fishing in general, the bait fish and smaller species like reef fish like snapper, barracudas, things like that, they spend their beginning stages of life in those mangroves. And also bait fish like sprat and fries, also their mangroves are their key habitats. So there's lots of other ways why mangroves are important as well, but for us here in Cayman, I'd say those are the top two. But also nesting habitat for our Cayman parrots, lots of aviary species like the West Indian whistling ducks, which come through the Cayman Islands every now and then. We also have all different species of warblers, egrets, herons, lots of great stuff live in the mangroves, and a lot of microorganisms that we don't even see are very prominent in these ecosystems that help all three of our coastal lagoon ecosystems thrive. And a main one for us is our coral reefs with that tourism aspect. Without the mangroves, the coral reefs wouldn't be as beautiful as they are today.
And I know we've definitely seen some evidence at Turtle Center of the protection that mangroves can provide for fish species, right, Adam?
Yes, we have actually, and I laugh because I can relate to Cassie about the different types of birds that call mangrove home. We actually have one or two resident green herons that try their luck at trying to catch some of our little fish out of the shoreline nursery, but because the mangrove root system is so extensive and the smaller fish can duck, kind of like seek refuge under the mangrove roots there, the herons have a pretty good time trying to get those guys out or try to fish those out, but they don't succeed much, and they just kind of get impatient and fly off. So we kind of see right there, you can definitely see the significance of mangroves, especially for smaller fish in the protection and stuff like that. But then also you can see, like what Cassie says, the biodiversity of different types of animals that live there, the different types of birds and stuff.
And we're definitely blessed here in the Cayman Islands with the different mangrove habitats we have around our islands. Places like Barker's is one of my favorite places to go and interact with. I personally go to see the birds and all the other animals that live in there. It's really cool to watch that. But what other mangrove habitats do we have here in Cayman?
So here in Cayman, in the Sister Islands, we have lots of wetland ponds on both southern western ends of the islands. But more significantly, here in Grand Cayman, we see a very large area of mangroves sort of in between Northside and Boddentown. If you've ever flown to the Sister Islands and taken off to the east, you would have flown directly over it. Driven up to Caibo and Rum Point area, you would have driven around it. It is called the Central Mangrove Wetlands. And this is actually the largest contiguous mangrove forest in the entire Caribbean. And not many people know that, but it's made up of just over 8,500 acres of wetland. Currently, only about 3,000 acres of that is protected through the Department of Environment's marine laws and protection zones. So like marine parks and marine reserves. So those coastal mangroves do have a bit of protection. When we move further inland, the National Trust Land Reserve Fund actually owns a few parcels of land in it that are solely owned for the purpose of protection. However, about 5,000 acres are still privately owned or zoned for potential development. So it's very important that we know about this resource that we have here in the Cayman Islands. The central mangroves is a significant reason why our North Sound and Stingray City sandbar and the coral reefs that we see inside the North Sound are so beautiful and clear. Those mangroves filter a lot of the nutrients coming off of the island into the North Sound. And also a lot of the marine species that we find in the North Sound are a direct result from the health of our central mangroves. And they actually are a huge reason why we see more rain in the western districts, because the prevailing winds through Grand Cayman are east-west. And as the clouds travel over the central mangroves, they then result in a lot more rain when they hit the western peninsula here on Grand Cayman. So if you enjoy a bit of rain every now and then and lower temperatures, which I know we all do,
We all enjoy that.
the central mangroves are a huge factor to having that continue. And they're a very crucial resource, and not even talking about the amount of carbon that they sequester and store below the surface. So very important resource and a really cool thing that not many people realize we have here in Grand Cayman.
So, yeah, we do have some incredible mangrove habitats here that need to be preserved and protected and taken care of by us because they help us. So I only think it's fair that we help them in return, too. But what are some quick and easy action takeaways that the everyday listener can do to help conserve and protect mangroves in the wild? I mean, one of my favorites, and if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me say it before, but picking up 3 pieces of trash a day is one of my favorites, because if one person does that every day for a whole year, that's over 1,000. So what are some of your favorites? And I'll start with you first, Adam.
Well, for me, obviously, it's knowing your areas and stuff. Again, reaching out to any kind of developer to try to preserve that area, not be developed. Like what you said, the collection of any kind of pollutions or pollutants that may be entangled in the mangroves, or doing some small cleanup activities around a large mangrove area. And, I don't want to go off topic too much, but just to kind of relate to what Cassie was saying about our larger areas of mangroves, I related earlier on to the southern fringe of Barkers right there. And I think it's 2.5 mile stretch of nothing but mangrove coastline. And I think it's one of the best kayaking that we have in the western part of the island right now, because the water is pretty shallow and it just has a large abundance of fish. But then you'll see the little bit of pollutants and stuff that are in there, entangled nets, buoys, stuff like that. And every now and again, if I'm up and down in that stretch, I'll pick up a few myself, kind of bring those ashore and just kind of recycle them in the way I could. So it's just kind of cleaning up and stuff and making sure that we're not contributing to any kind of pollutants that could harm the mangrove wetlands.
Yeah, and I think definitely being aware and responsible for the way you get rid of your garbage and your trash. I know anybody that's been in Barkers, you might see some illegal dumping happening of trash. So just being respectful of your mangrove ecosystems and our entire environment and disposing of your garbage properly. Also respecting nature and the creatures that live there. So if there is a bird walking very slowly in front of your car, just have a bit of patience and let him go on his way. And the same with the crabs and Hickory turtles and all sorts of creatures. Obviously, nature was here first, and we should respect that, because the more we respect nature, the more benefits we get from it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, guys. Cassie, can we just finish off with you telling us how we can reach out once again if you wanted to take part?
Of course. So any questions, queries, if you're interested in joining the Mangrove Rangers as a Mangrove Ranger, your child or someone, a young person that you know is interested in joining the Junior Rangers, or you just like to know more about mangroves and wetlands in general, feel free to email us at info@mangroverangers.ky. You can give us a call at 345-926-8621, and also reach out via via our website and our messaging channels listed at mangroverangers.ky.
And Adam, if anyone wanted to reach out to the mangrove initiatives at Cayman Turtle Center?
Well, as mentioned previously, you can always visit our website. Our emails are there that you can send an email out to. Those emails would be forwarded to me, and of course, I would reach out to those persons about our mangrove initiative, or come by the center one weekend or during the week. If you're in the area and when one of our crew members are around, we can obviously assist you and talk you through our programs and what we can do to help.
Well, thank you once again to the both of you for sharing that incredible information with us.
Thank you for having us, actually. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, coming up this week at Cayman Turtle Center, we have our Keeper Talks throughout the week. So we have our Keeper Talks in our Caribbean aviary, so you can catch those. Throughout the week, we also have our Shark Talk at 10:30, and that's from Monday to Friday down by the viewing glass at our Predator Reef habitat. But I'm also really excited to announce that nesting season has begun, not only in the wild, but also at Cayman Turtle Center. So please stop by, come and see some of our turtles, our hatchery, and maybe some of the hatchlings. But we are also calling for volunteers if you want to play a part in any of our upcoming turtle releases, especially because we'll get started really soon with our hatchling releases later on this summer. And a top tip for you guys, if you want to give yourself a little bit of a discount as a local, you can get yourself an annual pass for the center, and you can enjoy unlimited access all year round, and that saves you a little bit of money. So thank you for joining us today, guys. This has been The Green Scene on Bobo 89.1 FM. Join us every single Saturday at 11 a.m. But otherwise, we hope that you enjoy your weekend, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, this is Geddes from the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center.
Hi, this is Shona from the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center.
Hey, this is Wendy from the Cayman Turtle Conservation and Education Center.
We're inviting you to our new show.
Welcome to Cayman Turtle Center.
A day of fun and adventure awaits at Cayman Turtle Center Island Wildlife Encounter. Swim and snorkel alongside sea turtles and other marine life. Meet tropical birds in the aviary, ride our turtle twister water slide, or simply relax by the lagoon. Plan your adventure today.
Visit us online at www.turtle.ky.
Did you know that turtles play an important role in ocean ecosystems? Turtles maintain healthy seagrass beds and coral reefs, providing key habitat for other marine life and helping to balance marine food webs and nutrient cycling. Learn more about our turtle friends at the Cayman Turtle Center.
Hello, my name is Coco. I'm a Cayman parrot at the Cayman Turtle Center. I was rescued and love my home here. Did you know our human friends at the center breed and raise Cayman parrots, the national bird of the Cayman Islands, then release them to live in the wild? Come visit me and my bird friends at Cayman Turtle Center.